Kylie Heenan is a professional counsellor with a Master's in Counselling. She works with individuals and couples, helping couples with connection, communication and intimacy. Today she'll be presenting 8 steps to assist you in creating conscious communication to help enrichen your relationships and express your authentic self. The conscious communicator, Kylie Heenan.
Hello. This has been an amazing weekend to actually participate in the lead up to coming up and chatting as well. So there's been so much rich communication, and I've really enjoyed listening to everybody speak. And I kind of feel in a way that we're all sharing quite similar ideas, but we've all just got our own twist on how we present things or how we share or express those ideas. So, you know, hopefully everybody takes something small away from each person's talking, you know, and then some people will resonate in particular with this speaker and others with another. So, and I want to thank Anthony for inviting me to come along and talk to you today about some of these ideas. So I've been on a long journey myself. That was me many moons ago, with longer and different coloured hair and a baby daughter. And my journey kind of really kicked into gear over 20 years ago at this time. I left a really toxic relationship and decided that what fitted for me to call myself was a truth seeker. So I read a lot of self-help books. There was no internet at the time, so I didn't Google anything. And so I read a lot, and I began a really conscious practice of love and acceptance of myself that I hadn't really known before. And out of that came some profound spiritual experiences, is the way I would describe them. I also had multiple more relationship learning opportunities. And I also took my daughter and did a fair bit of travelling, both in Australia and overseas. I really connected with something that Paulina said yesterday about going to a place and finding a familiarity that blows your mind, because that happened for me in Greece, and specifically on the island of Crete. I didn't want to come back, but I did. So ultimately, after a lot of learning and self-awareness, I found my purpose in helping others through healing conversations. So I then took my insightful journey of self-discovery and built on it with quite a few years of theoretical and experiential training to become a professional relationship counsellor. Just want to touch briefly on the framework that I use in my practice, because it really is a framework that comes out of the postmodern paradigm shift. So it's called social constructionism, and what that means is it's kind of a framework that informs not counselling interventions or processes, but a way that we see people. So in the way that I work, it takes a shift away from a pathologising medical model of seeing people and families as deficient in some way, and it starts to see them as abundant in resources, in skills, and in capacities to heal given the right tools and a healthy environment. And the other aspect of the way that we see people is that you were born and grew up within a context. So you happen to be here now in this time and then in this place, and you grew up in your family and in your community, and so you were deeply influenced by the beliefs, the values and the ways of looking at the world by the people who raised you, your parents or your caregivers, your teachers, your peers, siblings, the wider community, extended family, and let's not forget the media. And you can't grow up immune to these influences. So you have become who you are today in all of those contexts, socially constructed. And that occurs in relationship. So with other people, with TV, radio, with conversations with yourselves. And the main way that we communicate in relationship is through our language. So the way that we use language in the big picture sense is to assign meanings to things and to experiences, and then we tell stories, we construct stories to make sense of those things and experiences. So just a quick example of how this might work. Isn't he gorgeous? When I say the word cat to you, something will spring to mind. What it might be is a furry, four-legged creature that dominates your waking life with its cuteness. Mind you, this is Lewis. But I may say cat and you may think of sneezing fits, runny nose, watering eyes. So cat might mean allergy or irritation for you. I might say cat and it happens to be that it brings a sense of sadness for you because you had a beloved fur baby who died or passed on to another plane. So even the word cat isn't really the same for all of us. We live in a world of multiple realities. So this leads us to consider then that there's not one truth, there's not one solution, there's not one right answer, but there are multiple truths. There are many ways of looking at any situation, and there are infinite possibilities for outcomes. We're only restricted by our current beliefs. And if you're not sure or you don't believe in the brain's immense capacity for change, consider the words of the neuroscientist Norman Doidge. He says, "You don't have to believe it, but suspend your disbelief and just do it." And that probably applies to anything you've heard here this weekend. So, meditating in a cave or on a stunning tropical island like this might be good for some quiet reflection. And Nina just touched on this, which was a beautiful segue into this idea. But our actual growth occurs in relationship. So let's say you read a self-help book, or you do an online course, or you come to a paradigm shift summit and you learn a bunch of stuff. Your life changes when you go and apply that in relationship in your life. Let's say, just for example, that you decide you're going to practice a higher regard for yourself. You're going to do that by setting healthier boundaries, and you're going to decide to say no to things you didn't before. So your practice is in saying no. Your growth comes from, one, how you feel about yourself in that, and two, how you handle others' reactions to your new behaviour or your new way of being, which might look something like this. But hopefully, and following from Nina's presentation, it looks more like this. But if you were on that island, how would you know you'd mastered it? So we only know when we try it out in relationship. And by the way, I just want to throw out a word of warning. If you spend long enough alone in a cave or on a deserted island, you'll end up in relationship with a basketball. Exactly. So today what I want to talk about is the things that are relevant when you're not in that cave or on that deserted island. I want to offer some ideas to help you just tweak your communication skills and maybe challenge some of those long-held beliefs that you have been implanted with or constructed with. And the good news is that you're in the driver's seat. So anybody can share some tips with you, and we all have this weekend, but you get the buzz of trying them out and finding out what results they bring. Or maybe, as Anthony said, you're in a perfect relationship and you don't need any tips. So hands up if you never have any tension or disagreements or conflict in your relationships. Okay, I thought there might be at least one person that... So we can all take something out of a conversation about how to connect, how to really understand each other, how to hear each other, and how to be more authentic with each other. And I can hear you itching to ask, why 8? Well, really just, I plucked a number out, and I think 8 is a beautiful number. It's got this amazing side to side and top to bottom symmetry, and then you pop it on its side and it represents the symbol for infinity. And if you're into numerology, 8 is a karmic equalizer, which means it creates and destroys. And I think that's so apt, because we have to destroy old parts of ourselves and our belief systems in order to make way for the new. Another interesting thing is that 8 is a balance between the spiritual and the material. And I think that's relevant for a lot of us that come to these kind of seminars, because we want to make peace with wealth. And we can. I've got a little equation to help. So if we understand that wealth means a capacity to give, makes it a little bit more comfortable. You don't serve anyone by being poor, be that financially, be that physically, spiritually, or emotionally. So holistic wealth is a balance of all these things. And it's also interesting that Kylie is an 8 name, which resonates for me, because I feel the most abundant and charged up and excited when I've been of service and when I'm on purpose. And so the other obvious question you've all got is, do I remember to do all the tips I'm going to share with you all the time? And the answer is absolutely not. And why is that? Well, that's because I'm having a human experience. And you won't, because you're having a human experience too. You're a work in progress, full of potential, and you'll never reach a final destination, or as Nina said, you will when you die, but hopefully you'll enjoy seeing the sights along the way. So let's get into it. Step 1, awareness. I like to call this noticing. The easiest thing that I think we can begin to notice is simply our breath coming in and out. We often direct our focus to our breath in meditation. So we can then pay attention to the breath and use that awareness to bring a focus into the body, the physical body. And get a sense of where you might be holding tension or discomfort or pain. So you can take time to close your eyes and just do a body scan from the tips of your toes right up to the top of your head, even up into the crown chakra. And then bring attention to your thoughts. And this is trickier because they're silent and they're lightning fast. But try to catch them and pay attention to what you hear on repeat. Do the same with your words. So what is it that you notice coming out of your mouth repeatedly? Do you complain a lot about what's not going well? When others say positive things, do you negate them? When someone offers you a compliment, do you decline it? Listen also to what those closest to you say. And that includes what you hear on TV and radio. What are you immersed in every day? If our beliefs are constructed by what we're hearing and seeing regularly, then perhaps we need to become a little bit more discerning. So therapy can be great for raising this awareness, having someone to talk to, which is why it's called talking therapy, and having someone then reflect back what they're hearing you say, which sounds like a pretty simple process, but can actually give you those light bulb moments. But you might have a good friend who can help you with this as well, so someone who you trust to say, what do they hear you saying frequently? The ones that always get me are when you hear people say, "Oh, you're killing me," or "You nearly gave me a heart attack." If our words and thoughts influence our reality, what's that doing? And now if I were to ask you to describe yourself, what would you say? your identity is how you describe yourself and who you choose to be every single day. It's not arbitrarily decided by an external power. It's not fixed or permanent or stagnant. It's dynamic and fluid. See if any of these resonate for you in the way that you might describe yourself. Depressed, bored, shy. It's just the way I am. A loner. Disorganised, chaotic. I can't help it. Angry, unhappy, not very confident. I've always been like this. I can't change. Now begin to notice these tags as resistance to new behaviour. They come out of a place of conditioning around our limitations, and they keep us really nicely tucked in our comfort zones. But you guys are at a paradigm shift seminar, so I'm guessing that you might want to challenge all that. So here we go. You are not the labels you attach to yourself. Neither is your partner, your child, your mother, or your friend. But you will act them out. So tune in, pay attention, and this is just the first step towards creating a deeper awareness and authenticity within yourself. Step 2, presence. Be here now. So who's not here now? Funny question. But seriously, if you're thinking about dinner tonight or updating your Facebook status, then you're not really here. You're absent-minded. Don't we use that expression a lot? So you're not connected to your present moment experience. But in terms of your greatest point of power, it's the only place that you can be. So tell me, what is it that you can change about yesterday? Nothing. Okay, let's not go into challenging the masters of quantum physics. Tell me what's certain to happen tomorrow. You don't really know. So your point of power is in the here and now. Those other times only exist in an abstract capacity. But if you've checked out from whatever's happening now, maybe it's because you don't want to deal with an unpleasant experience. Maybe it's because you're reliving past events or dreading what tomorrow may bring. But all of these leave us powerless. So your point of power is right now choosing actions and thoughts to bring about, in other words, what you want tomorrow to bring. And you can even use the power of now to heal the impacts of the past. The great spiritual leader, Thich Nhat Hanh, who among other books wrote You Are Here, tells us that uniting the body and mind is a way that we can become more connected to the present. So try this. Just really quickly close your eyes and take a deep breath in, hearing, breathing in, there is only the present moment. Breathing out, it is a wonderful moment. You can use tools like this, tools like mindfulness, to remain focused on the task at hand, even if it's just washing the dishes. Just be in the experience and let everything else go. Step 3, acceptance. So accept things as they are, even if you wish to change them. When you start with acceptance, you're not a victim of circumstance, stuck in the why me? If anyone was here last year at the 2016 summit, you might remember Anthony talked about the New Age movement and the conspiracy theorists. And he said we need to find a balance so that we're not shutting out the negative, but we're not only focusing on the negative. And so to do that, we need to start with acceptance of what is right now. If you keep wishing it was something else or complaining that it's not, you're not in the now. And that's where the solutions and the actions can be found. You're spending the now as a victim, paralysed by circumstance, tied up in the injustice of the world. Well, the bad news is the world is not just Justice is another construct that we made up. We created rules to help society function, and that serves a purpose. But life itself isn't just. I'll give you a simple example of how I stepped out of victim mode recently. I was worrying about a relationship dynamic, and I brought it up with a mentor. And we had a chat about, you know, the emotional aspect and the whys, and got some deeper understanding and insight. And then I turned around and I said to her, I just want it to stop. And she said, so stop struggling. And I got my little notebook out and I wrote down, stop struggling. And it was profound. And then I wrote, let go of the outcome. And that was one of those light bulb moments. I mean, you know this stuff, and then it hits you in a new context, and it's like learning it all over again. But I realised that I was struggling because I wanted the other person to change their perception of me. And so I was attached to that as an outcome, and I was frustrated because they didn't change. So I just stopped and thought, it's nothing to do with me, and I don't need to make it my business. And the funny thing was that as well as alleviating me of my worries, the dynamic with that person changed instantly, and I mean the same day. And I can't explain that other than I let it go and something shifted. So my only decision was not to struggle. So if life isn't fair, and there's no justice other than a system we've constructed, then what logically follows is there's no deserving, which means you don't deserve anything, which sounds kind of sucky, right? I can hear you saying, but I've worked hard, I'm a good person. I've done a lot for my community and my family. I've done so much work on myself. But really, deserving is an illusion. So when things don't come or they go horribly wrong, it's not personal. Shit happens, as we like to say. The antelope doesn't deserve to get brought down by the lions, but the lion needs to eat. You know when you watch those nature shows how you always feel sorry for the loser? Yeah? So the antelope gets brought down and you feel really, really sad for the antelope. But the antelope gets away, and then you watch the lion go back to her cubs with no food and you feel sad for the lion. Neither deserved the outcome. The lion doesn't turn around and go, but I practiced my running so hard this week. And the antelope doesn't turn around and say, but I've been so kind to my family, I don't deserve this. Life is non-fair by design. So if you accept this, you'll instantly be freed from the justice trap. Step 4, responsibility. And we're going to talk here about what responsibility loves to get confused with, which is blame. And I love this cartoon to capture it. So here's a gorgeous family lost in the thick of the jungle, and Dad's saying, okay, I admit it, we're lost, but the important thing is to remain focused on whose fault it is. If your mother, your father, your partner, your ex, your kids, your boss, the police, your doctor, the other drivers on the road, 15-year-old at the checkout, that guy there, are responsible for the situation in which you find yourself right now and how you feel about it, then you're completely helpless. Which might be convenient if you like feeling pissed off at the world. But if you're tired of being angry or just chronically annoyed or unfulfilled or depressed, then take note. Responsibility is empowering. Responsibility allows you to make decisions to change your situation by first acknowledging that you can. It's the golden ticket. Responsibility allows you to choose what to feed your physical body. It allows you to choose what to wear every day that is an expression of who you are and feels comfortable. Responsibility allows you to choose where to spend your days and whether you spend them doing what you love. Responsibility allows you to decide what treatment is right for you when you become unwell and what steps you might take to prevent becoming unwell in the first place. Responsibility allows you to wake up every single morning and decide to be with your significant other, because you chose them and you can leave anytime you want. They're not to blame if you're with them and miserable. And the flip side to taking responsibility for yourself is to stop taking responsibility for everyone else. And I'm not talking about kids you brought into the world here. When you actually take responsibility for other people, you take away the learning opportunities and the growth that comes out of struggle and stepping up. Fritz Perls, who was the father of Gestalt therapy, used to say, frustration is necessary for maturation. You have to go through a struggle in order to actually grow. If someone scooped you up every time you fell, you would never have learned to walk. So stop rescuing other people. Stop giving them advice they don't want. Stop telling them what they should or shouldn't do. Allow others to be the expert of their own life, and you be the expert of yours. You can share ideas, sure, ask if your opinion's wanted, but offer it without strings, freely, as a gift. Allow others to do as they will. So think about what that means, do as they will. It means as they manifest it into reality through their thoughts and deeds. You can't do that for anybody else, only yourself. So take responsibility for you and let go for others. And this also invites us to think about not taking things personally. And this book's a handy little read if you want to look more into that. The new trend on social media. You've offended me, I'm defriending you. We create social platforms where everybody gets to express an opinion and then we get outraged by what other people say. If we stop taking responsibility for others and stop taking things personally, we stop assuming other people's actions have anything much to do with us at all. So then we can let go of outrage and hurt and disappointment and defensiveness. It doesn't really matter. What others think of us has very little to do with us. You can check in on your behaviour and take responsibility for how you be in the world, but at the end of the day, you can't control how others ultimately see you, what they think about you, their gossip, their perceptions. So step 5, cultivating compassion. What is compassion? Compassion literally means to suffer with, and that is a turn off right there. I mean, who wants to suffer? And yet suffering with is a key way to build connection. And what's required of us to suffer with? Well, it doesn't mean stepping into the fire with another person, but it means being willing to hear what being in the fire was like for them. I like to call it bearing witness. One reason so many people come for counselling is that they have nobody else to talk to about the hard stuff. Death, separation, loss, existential anxiety, deep sadness, fear. And the reason that we don't want to hear that uncomfortable stuff is because it destroys our illusion of happiness. How uncool that you're being such a downer when I'm checking in at my hipster cafe and I'm posing a pic on Insta of my rosy life with my schnoodle and my corgi poo. But life entails suffering, and we've lost the art of being with suffering. We want the quick fix. We want others to get over it so we don't have to hear about it. We want to console others just enough so that we don't have to see their tears. So we try to cheer them up. Think of something more pleasant to talk about, when what they desperately need is someone to sit quietly by their side and be with their pain, their despair and their sorrow. Not to cheer them up or have words of wisdom, but just to bear witness, lessen the load, let them know someone cares. And you'd be surprised how powerful that is. So if that's what compassion is, what is it that gets in the way of compassion? Well, one of my teachers once said that conflict that destroys relationships. As unpleasant as conflict might be and as badly as we might do it, conflict still often shows us that we're fighting for something. So what kills a relationship ultimately? It's indifference. Indifference, apathy, not caring, not being bothered, sorry, not sorry. So if it's indifference that kills a relationship and it's compassion that we want to cultivate, how do we do that? Well, the way that I like to get it started is to think about the proverb, charity begins at home. And what that means for me is be kinder to yourself. Has anyone here got that nasty little disease called perfectionism? Yeah, I can hear someone saying that's me. It's not you, it's just an illusion of you. The pressure that we place upon ourselves to be perfect creates intense levels of stress and anxiety. The fear of getting it wrong or being seen as less than what we're trying to project. And it's a bottomless pit because you'll never be perfect because perfect doesn't exist. It's another construct. And so if the aim isn't to be perfect, then what are we left with? To be good enough? Maybe. What about even to be enough? Imagine a world where we get up every morning and we take some steps towards our hopes and dreams every day, and we love the people around us, and we just be okay with that at the end of the day. Sound all right? So you can choose it. And the more we would hold on to this okayness, the less we would need to wonder how to get better at forgiveness. Forgiveness is part of the package when we practice these other steps. That's why I haven't made it its own step. As you become accepting of the human experience, the imperfection of yourself and others, you'll automatically become more forgiving. I'm just thinking about skipping a little bit here. So you'll become more reasonable in your expectations for yourself, and you'll extend that grace to others. And this doesn't mean putting up with ill treatment, but becoming clear on what's okay and not okay. Within the okayness, bring awareness to your expectations, your frustrations, and make a practice of growing tolerance and kindness. Then bearing witness to the pain we feel and others feel, not escaping it or minimising it, but being with it, hearing it, feeling it, allowing it to move through us. So we grow out the other side, richer, more compassionate, and even more authentic. Okay, step 6. So this sounds like a simple one, listening to connect, but it's a counselling skill that you can essentially develop through a simple practice that I'll teach you. And I can already hear people in the audience thinking, but I'm a good listener. But I'm talking about a listening that makes you present for another, not that other kind of listening where we're waiting for our turn to speak. So listening to connect is not about us, it's about them. When we bear witness to others' pain, we don't need incredible words of wisdom, we just need to be present. It sounds simple, but if you try it and go back to noticing, you'll hear all these voices coming up in your head, comparing your story to theirs and reminding you of past experiences and having fabulous advice that you want to give and really eager for your turn to talk. But for that moment when you're really present for another, even if you don't really like what you're hearing, even if it sounds like it might be about you, if you can put defense and judgment aside, really hear what's important for them. And just 5 to 10 minutes even of this will do wonders for any relationship, because we all want to feel heard and cared for and connected. So here's a quick step. Grab a partner or a friend, not now, on the next weekend, and one of you takes a turn speaking about something in your life, and for a practice, keep it a light topic. So just talk for 5 minutes uninterrupted. The other person is listening, and when they've finished talking, the listening person reflects back a little bit about what they heard and tries to identify a feeling or two that they picked up on. The first person can clarify anything they want, and then you swap. Now I know it sounds absurdly simple, but you will be surprised if you try it how much you want to jump in, how much you want to give advice, how much you want to talk about yourself. But if we practice this exercise, it can help us develop the capacity to turn ourselves onto another completely. Imagine the implications. Step 7. Did you read that right? We submit to decisions we make every day, and then we pretend it's out of our control. So remember step 4, taking responsibility. It's up to us to be bothered, to make time, to stop excuses, to quit avoidance, and to realise that the only way that we enjoy life is if we choose to. Now, I know that there's days where things go haywire, like a flat tyre you didn't expect, but there are far more days that we spend our time simply choosing not to have fun. I notice when we talk about time, we often use a reference to currency. Have you noticed? Spending time. So when you spend money, you expect something in return, right? But what are you getting in return for your time investment? So here's an idea. All work and no play not only makes Jack dull, but unhealthy, boring, and probably seeking medication for his depression. The prescription is fun. Jack needs to find something that he enjoys to do and just go do it. A sport, a hobby, dancing. Finding ways to laugh. And make sure there's a good dose of laughing at yourself and the general absurdity of life while you're at it. So make time your fun currency. Step 8, appreciation. We all know this one. A state of thankfulness, an attitude of gratitude. Whatever you want to call it, it works. What I like to do is invite you to take it a step further. So we can be doing our gratitude practice, and that's acknowledging what's going well, what we have, what we enjoy. But when we bring it into relationship with others, we offer explicit messages of appreciation. And by that I don't mean the ones that need a language warning. Thank you for working to support our family. Thank you for putting your toys away. It really helped me when you listened to me earlier. Thank you for cooking this delicious meal. Thank you, Source, for guiding me to take the next action. And grab a mirror and do this one. Hey, Kylie, you did some awesome work in the community today. Seriously, give that a try. In fact, numerous studies show that even at work, we want to feel appreciated more than we want a pay rise. A guy called Sean Acor studies happiness, and of the 1 million Americans surveyed each year, he found that being appreciated ranks higher than pay. He also found that productivity rises a whopping 30% when one statement of praise is made per day to a team. So imagine then what happens when you thank your significant other for the little things that they do each day that you just take for granted. Well, another study did just that. So these guys studied couples and found that people who felt appreciated by their partners were more appreciative in return, were more responsive, were more committed, and stayed in the relationship longer. So here's some ways that we can actively practice gratitude and appreciation. Journaling. Thinking about someone for whom you're grateful. Writing or sending a letter, meditating, counting your blessings, practicing saying thank you in a sincere and meaningful way. Thank you notes and praying. So we've covered the 8 steps, and if you aim to do all these things, you'll be happy, right? Don't bet on it. Happiness is, in the way that I see it, it's a momentary, fleeting state of emotion, usually in response to things going pretty well. Sometimes you'll be happy and sometimes you won't. And if you aim for happiness as your end goal, then you will feel miserable when you have crappy days. So rather than pursuing happiness, aim to linger in contentment. Contentment, for me, is a more stable state of being, not connected to a particular emotion. Contentment is acknowledging shit happens, and sometimes shit is not happening, and we're having fun and laughter and connection, or even stillness, and we're profoundly grateful for that. Contentment will have you looking around thinking, wow, look at all that's going well right now, isn't that awesome? Contentment will have you noticing that you are well and that your loved ones are well, and knowing nothing beats that because it makes all things possible. Contentment will have you notice the very roof over your head and the food on your table and the person who cared about you today, and thinking, I'm doing okay, this is enough. Whoops. Aim for happiness and you'll never be content. But take the time to connect, to listen, to appreciate, to notice beauty, and to have some fun, and to simply be, and you'll be deeply content. And I want to sincerely thank you for hearing me today, and for the work that you are doing to improve relationships, to deepen connection, to be your more authentic self, and thereby to create the shift towards a more loving humankind. Thank you.